Welcome to your headquarters for knowledge and helpful advice on a variety of topics, all from trusted experts in their fields. It's time for River City Podcast. Melissa Ambrose is the co-owner and founder of METAFITRX, Metabolic Fitness Prescriptions. In 2020, after 15 years in the fitness industry and amid a global pandemic, Melissa recognized the need for safe, sustainable, and evidence-based solutions in exercise and nutrition programming. Having a master's degree in exercise physiology, Melissa envisioned bringing metabolic assessments, which were typically reserved for athletes and research facilities, to the general public. Her goal was to break through all the noise and confusion of the health and fitness industry, the fad diets, the trendy exercises, and the misleading marketing. METAFITRX leverages a person's individual metabolic and body composition data to tailor a personalized approach to fitness and nutrition, resulting in sustainable lifestyle changes and improved overall health and fitness outcomes. So, Melissa, welcome to River City Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, here's what I want to start with is just a brief overview of what METAFITRX is and what you guys do, and then we can jump into more specifics.
So METAFITRX stands for Metabolic Fitness Prescriptions. We do metabolic testing that used to kind of be reserved for professional athletes or collegiate athletes or people in a research setting. And then we take those assessments and we figure out how to do your fitness design or your nutrition design or your behavior change that's necessary based on your personal metabolic data. I did all of this stuff in graduate school, and my goal was to just kind of bring it to everybody. So if you're outside of a professional athlete setting or you're outside of a college or a university setting that doesn't have this, I wanted everybody to be able to have access to it. So those core metabolic assessments are really what we revolve everything around. As far as doing, like I said, our health programming, our fitness programming, our nutrition programming, it is all based on somebody's individual metabolism.
So for people that don't even really get the most basic of this, explain why the metabolism is so significant in basing everything around it.
So everybody's different, right? You can Google a billion different fitness programs and a billion different nutrition programs. And what I say to a lot of people is, especially people who are active or people who are trying with their nutrition, is what you're doing might not be wrong, but it might not be right for you. It might not be right for your body, and it might not be right for your goals. It's going to be directly correlated with your ability to lose weight, lose body fat, or gain muscle mass. It's also going to be correlated with your performance. And then we also take a look at everybody's individual body composition. Who cares what the scale says? How much of that is bone? How much of that is lean mass? How much of that is body fat? So all of this together kind of helps us construct a much more detailed plan for an individual, and not just guessing and not just coming up with something that's maybe a fad diet or something they heard on the internet or whatever. We really try to narrow it down to the science so that it's a program that is based on you and you alone.
There's definitely a phenomenon that I hear in circles of women who are kind of in that perimenopausal state, right? Where it gets a little more tricky to keep your weight in line. And there's this conversation about simple carbs. And it seems like a lot of men can eat carbs all day, every day. And when we as women start eating bread and pasta and things like that, even in moderation, it is affecting us in a different way. And so would metabolism and everything that you do kind of say, hey, you probably need to lean more toward a high protein and avoid the carbs? And are there people who can eat those carbs and be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would really narrow it down to a caloric intake first, right?
Okay.
And one of the things we do when I say testing the metabolism, one of the main tests we do is called resting metabolic rate. And this determines the amount of calories that you would burn at rest in a 24-hour period if you laid there and did nothing. What do you just need to survive? What are your basic functions? That number, so your resting metabolic rate, actually makes up about 75% of what you burn. And then you've got your daily lifestyle, your daily activity, so you burn a little bit more on top of that. But your RMR, your resting metabolic rate is considered your baseline metabolism. So we can assess that, but then, well, do we know if it's high? Do we know if it's low? We also have another machine called the DEXA. This is what does our body composition. This is where we figure out what exactly is your body is made of, basically. Again, the bone, the muscle, and the fat. And we can say, okay, based on your lean mass, this is about what we think your RMR should be. And then we can say, okay, here's where your RMR actually is. And based on where it comes in is how we get into that caloric discussion. Once we figure out calories that are appropriate for you and your goal, then we start talking about macronutrients. And depending on what your goal is and depending on what your starting point is, you may or may not be somebody that gets more carbs or that gets more protein. This is where it goes back to everybody's different. We try to look at protein and calories being the big two. The macronutrients of carbohydrates and fats we can play with a little bit. It really all just, again, depends on your goal, and it also depends a lot on your activity level.
Here is a question that a friend of mine and I were literally 2 nights ago sitting on my porch talking about, and we were Googling things. We should have just called you. But I was thinking back in the day, and I don't know if you know this, but my career in my early 20s started out at Jenny Craig. I was a weight loss counselor, and then I ran the center, and we were taught that it takes 3,500 calories to gain 1 pound. And what my friend and I were confused about is why can we be eating, maybe 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories and gaining weight?
Well, and that's probably because your caloric need is not that high. And again, I'm just spitballing a number, but let's say we tested your metabolism and you come in at 1,500 or 1,400. If that's where you come in and you're eating 2,000 or 2,500, you're eating 1,000 over what your caloric needs are. If you're not exercising enough, if you don't have enough physical activity for that extra 1,000 calories that you're taking in, you're going to gain weight. And most people don't need that much extra calories on top of their resting metabolic rate. It just depends on your activity level. At best, maybe you need over 500 calories more. So again, if you don't know where that RMR is and you're just estimating and you're like, I'm going to eat 2,500 calories,
right,
it could be 1,000 calories over your necessity. It's a more nuanced conversation because we can talk about increasing your metabolism so that you can eat more.
Oh, I really want to talk about that at some point.
But the bottom line is if your metabolism's here and you don't know it, and everything, you look at our nutrition labels, you look at food labels, it's all based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Everybody that I know that's appropriately on a 2,000 calorie diet, they're doing massive amounts of workout, right? They're doing resistance training, cardiovascular work, and they're somewhere between, 2,000 and 2,500 is the norm. Unless you're a bodybuilder, we're not going on 3,000, 4,000 calories. You just don't need that much. So while the idea of 3,500 calories equals a pound is correct, but you're like, I'm only eating 2,000. If you only needed 1,500, then you're eating 500 calories extra every day. And then that's how eventually within a week or so, you're gaining that weight. So again, the problem is if you just don't know and you're just kind of blindly shooting in the dark as to where you think you need to eat. And, we're all kind of taught everything is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. My resting metabolic rate was like 1,500. So if I'm working out enough, I can do a 2,000 calorie diet and maintain. But if I'm not working out and I'm eating 2,000 calories, I'm going to gain weight. Again, that's the point of the test is it's knowing your starting point because everybody's different. You could be on the exact same nutrition plan as somebody else and they could lose weight and you could gain weight. And it's all based on where your metabolism is.
That metabolism, it's everything.
Yeah.
When people use the word slow metabolism, I have a slow metabolism, that is really indicative of their resting metabolic rate is slower
than where it should be, right? So again, we have normative data standards based on age, height, weight, gender. The DEXA scan that we run gives us that normative data. We can say, okay, you came in right on, right? You're right where you should be for your RMR. Maybe you're a little bit over or maybe you're under. That's how we find out. You have to know what the normative data standard is, and then you have to actually test it and see where you are compared to that. And then we can say, okay, yes, you legitimately have a slow metabolism, or nope, your metabolism's fine. Maybe you're just not feeding it properly, or maybe you're just not doing the right amount of activity.
And all these programs, from my time, at least at Jenny Craig back then, I don't know what they're doing today, but I'm going to guess they're not doing this, as well as Weight Watchers and all the different programs. None of them test for this.
They don't, but I will say a lot of those programs, I'm not as familiar with Jenny Craig. I'm very familiar with Weight Watchers. I had a lot of clients that did that. Usually the first time you do these programs, they're fabulous and they work because usually you haven't had any metabolic damage. You haven't had any metabolic slowdown. So you go to these programs use your estimation. And if you haven't had an issue, it's probably correct. So you're going to see massive success. And this is usually the story that gets told to me. People did some sort of weight loss program, whether it was a healthy one or not, it doesn't matter. But the first one always works. You always see fantastic success. Then you gain all that weight back. Now you do it again. Could be the exact same program, could be a different program, and you lose weight, but it wasn't as great as the first time. And then you gain all that weight back. Usually by the time it's somebody's third time around, whether it's Weight Watchers or whatever diet they're doing, that third time around, they're like, I'm doing everything, nothing's working. And that's because now every time we've gone through that weight loss cycle, we slowed the metabolism down. And when you gained weight back, you didn't gain muscle mass back, right? You gained body fat back. So every time that cycle pushes your metabolism down until eventually your body just stops responding. And it's usually that third time around. People are like, okay, I'm eating healthy, I'm working out, my body's not responding, what's going on? And it's because they've had that metabolic slowdown. So the first time you go to these programs, it's great. It's super successful. Life is good. But then once you keep going and you keep slowing the metabolism down, now we have to repair your metabolism in order to start all over.
Wow. And I'd say for the majority of people, maybe, I mean, I hear it more with my female friends, definitely, than I do my male. But I mean, the average amount of diets, whatever you want to call it, that people have been on is insane. It's way beyond 3.
Right. Oh, yeah. And that is another thing that can slow your diet down too. If you're constantly eating in a deficit, if you've been on a 1,200 calorie diet forever, that's no longer a deficit. That's now your norm. That also can slow your metabolism down because your body is going to slow down to meet the energy that it's getting. So if you've been on a 1,200 calorie diet or a 1,500 calorie diet or whatever for the past 20 years, you've always been trying to calorically restrict. It's no longer a diet. This is your lifestyle and your body has slowed down to meet that. So that can happen as well. People are like, I've been dieting forever, when in reality, that's your new norm. You've trained your body that that's now the norm.
You can fix it.
You can fix it. It is absolutely repairable. Yes. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes the realization of I'm in a repair stage. You're repairing your metabolism, which means you may or may not see whatever results it is that you're looking for elsewhere, especially if it's weight loss. You kind of have to wait and repair the metabolism in order to get back to being able to have a body recomposition shift. So it's absolutely fixable, but you have to have the mindset of I'm taking the time to repair what's been damaged before I can really set off on my journey, on my goals.
Psychologically, that's actually probably a really healthy component.
Yes, because you want to have a good relationship with food. You don't want to always be on a diet. You don't want to always be tracking it's annoying. You don't want to be tracking and weighing what you're doing. I always tell people you don't have to be perfect, but you've got to be dialed in. We've got to figure out what it is you're doing. We've got to repair it and then figure out a lifestyle component from there and not a diet because dieting's horrible.
It is horrible. Well, and speaking of lifestyle, let's talk a little bit about exercise. What recommendations do you make for fitness with regard to weight training, cardio, and just really improving cardiorespiratory fitness?
General recommendations are you want to have a healthy balance between cardiovascular work and between weight training, resistance training. And people typically gravitate to one or the other. People either love doing cardio or they love lifting weights. They very rarely like doing both, but it's 2 different types of workouts. You need both. So for general health, I usually tell people you don't want to use cardio for weight loss. You don't want to use cardio for fat loss. You can, absolutely. You're going to expedite results. But if you do 6 days a week of cardio and then you stop, your body's going to adjust. So figure out a cardiovascular routine that you're going to stick with. And for most people, I say 2 to 3 times a week is really all you need. I feel like that's realistic. You're going to stick with it. You can do 2 to 3 times a week. It's not overreaching because again, you can do more, but if you choose to do more, you got to realize as soon as you back off, that caloric difference is going to be made up somewhere. So I usually say 2 to 3 times a week is perfect. If you can do 3 times a week, I recommend 1 high intensity, trying to get that heart rate as high as you can. And then the other 1 to 2 being that lower intensity, that longer steady state, because you're working 2 different energy systems there. And then as far as your resistance training, so resistance training, it really depends on how much time you can devote to this. If you've only got 2 or 3 days to devote to resistance training, then I want you doing 2 or 3 days of total body, hitting every single muscle group so that you get more volume, you get more bang for your buck. If you realistically can be in the gym 4 times a week or 5 times a week with your resistance training, then we can start splitting it up. Then you can do like upper body, lower body, or push-pull splits are very popular. There's nothing wrong with those. They're fantastic and they work. But if you can't stay consistent on it, you're better off just doing total body. Because if you start doing those splits and then you start missing it, you're not consistent. So that just really depends on how much time you have. But for most people, for the average person, 2 to 3 times a week, weightlifting. If you're new, do 2 times a week. If you've been doing 2 times a week for a while and you feel like you're ready to go to 3, make that jump to 3 because that's a really good increase. Typically, once you're fairly well conditioned and you're no longer a beginner, 2 times a week is going to be maintenance. You need that third time to kind of really push your goals.
That leads me to a question. My routine and the class I actually teach is a complete combo of that cardio and weight training.
Okay.
So it's, I guess you would call it interval, Tabata, but it's routines that go back and forth between using weights and weight training and cardio in between. What's your thought on that?
You absolutely can combine them. Not everybody has 2 hours a day to spend at the gym, right? Do your cardio for an hour and then your weights for an hour. So you absolutely can combine your cardio and your weight training. Be aware that if you're combining cardio and weights, you're not going to be able to lift as heavy when you're incorporating that cardiovascular component. It's not safe to try to go as heavy as you can and then also to be doing cardio. So it's most likely going to be more of a muscular endurance workout for your weight training than it is pure strength. And that's totally fine. I would say if you're going to combine them, try to at least get one pure strength one a week where you're not incorporating that cardio so that you can focus a little bit more on challenging yourself as far as lifting heavy. But it's absolutely fine to combine them, especially because it's a massive time saver and you can get great results with both. Just again, being aware of you're not going to be able to lift as heavy when you incorporate that cardio. And maybe you don't want to lift as heavy. That's fine, right? That might not be your goal is hypertrophy. You might just be maintaining or you might just be going for general health. So it's totally fine to mix the two. It's also much more realistic for most people to mix them. The other thing I always tell people is every other day, total body cardio, and you can kind of flip-flop them like that as well.
You're right. Everybody is divided, and I'm definitely weight training all day, every day.
Me too.
But so mixing it in like that for me just makes it more fun, and it's just fun to do classes like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't stand cardio, so I agree.
We hear a lot about BMI, and it has a lot of shade from a lot of people.
Yes.
So how does body composition compare to BMI?
BMI gets a bad rap, rightfully so sometimes, because BMI, all it's doing is looking at your height times weight. And again, it's just a normative data standard, whether you're normal, it'll say overweight, obese, underweight, whatever. Body composition is looking at, okay, now what comprises that weight? We talked about it. It looks at the bone mineral density, it looks at the lean mass, it looks at the body fat. So it's obviously a much more detailed version of you than BMI. BMI is usually great if we need a snapshot of a large population really, really quickly. For the most part, BMI is usually on par. It's not usually wrong. However, when you get down to the individual, now it can start to be wrong a little bit. So a lot of times what we see on the DEXA, we see people who their BMI might say that they're overweight or obese, but their body fat's actually really low and they have a lot of muscle mass. These are a lot of times my bigger guys, like my bodybuilder guys or my athletes. A lot of times athletes' BMI is going to come in high, and that's because they have so much lean mass. They barely have any body fat. They're obviously not overweight or obese. Their lean mass is high, and that's why it's saying they're high. We get that a lot. BMI can overestimate how heavy you are, basically. It's because of lean mass. But we've also seen the opposite. We've also seen BMI make somebody think that they're healthy when they're actually not. We've seen somebody's BMI be normal, but they had clinically high levels of body fat and they didn't have any muscle mass.
Wow.
It's called sarcopenic obesity. It's skinny fat, basically. It's the fancy term for skinny fat. Again, it's that general snapshot if you're looking at a large population of people. But when we get down to the individual level, obviously it's not going to tell the entire story. It could be reading you high when you're really not. It could be reading you low when you really don't have any muscle mass. If you really want to get to know your body and you really want to know where you're at, you absolutely need a better measure. BMI is not a good measure for an individual person. Again, it's great when we need a snapshot. What I don't like about it is how it is used. I had a client one time who gave his DEXA report that I did, his body composition report, to his insurance company because his life insurance company was charging him more because it said he was obese, but he's a bodybuilder.
Wow.
And he's like, they won't take my rate down because BMI says I'm obese. So he actually took this to them to be like, I'm healthy. Like, you have to take this down. And doctors know it's not the best measure. It's all they have for a very quick snapshot. But on an individual level, you definitely should get to know your body a little bit better because BMI could be right, it could be wrong. And until you really break it down, you just don't know. And if you're on that sarcopenic obesity side, where it's the skinny fat side, that can be just as detrimental. You really need to correct that. It gets some shade thrown at it for appropriate reasons. But again, when it's used properly, which is just supposed to be a snapshot of a population really quick, it can be useful. And on the individual level, it's not a good way to measure your own success and your own baseline.
That makes me think of what we were all told as females in my family. We were all always told that we're big boned. Is there any truth to being big boned?
You might have dense bones and you might be taller, right?
Right.
You might have longer bones. But as far as big bones, I have not seen that.
It was just a lie to make us feel better.
I've done over 500 scans now, and I can say that some people have way more density, right? The density of their bones. So the weight of their bones. If you're tall, you've got longer bones. But as far as big, I don't think that actually, I have not seen that yet. I'll just leave it to that. I have not seen that yet.
Okay, Melissa, this is a big topic that I want to cover. There's a really hot trend right now. It is happening on Real Housewives. It is happening with celebrities, and it's called a few different things. So there's some confusion there. It's called Semaglutide, it's called Wegovy, and it's called Ozempic, which I think is the mother of it all. These are prescriptions, either orally taken with Ozempic or being injected, and they're being used for weight loss. What is your thought on this trend?
All right. So Ozempic and Wegovy are both name brand prescriptions for semaglutide. It's all semaglutide. It's all the same thing. What you get prescribed is either whether it's for diabetes, whether it's for type 2 diabetes, or whether it's for weight loss. That depends on what it gets called, whether Ozempic or Wegovy. It's the exact same thing. It just depends on what it's being prescribed for. It originally started as a type 2 diabetic drug. It's actually been out for a while as a type 2 diabetes drug. And then they realized, they were like, oh, people are losing weight on this. Let's market it. If you're getting a prescription from a doctor, it's going to be one of those two things. If you are buying it on your own, which there are a lot of physicians, there are a lot of nurse practitioners that can get semaglutide, and they're doing this on their own as far as weight loss programs. So that's obviously not through insurance. And they typically will just call it a semaglutide weight loss program because it's not under the brand name of Ozempic or under the brand name of Wegovy. But again, it's the exact same thing. So yeah, this is a hot trend. As a fitness professional, I have really had to learn to be very open-minded, because when we first heard about this, fitness professionals or people in the fitness industry, we kind of get upset about things like this because it's not the healthy lifestyle that we're always trying to push. But I would say I've really learned to have an open mind about this because I've worked with a lot of clients that are on it. I've seen a lot of people use it, and I've seen how it can really help people. It can help people what they call the food noise, right? Constantly talking about food or thinking about food or just kind of getting them away from that obsession. And it really can help people lose weight. The caveat to this, and what I think is not being explained to the average person that's going on this. So whether you're working with a physician or you're working with a nurse practitioner, sometimes they're telling you this, sometimes they're not. They may or may not be doing you the service of telling you all the ins and outs of this drug. One of the biggest things that we're seeing is lean mass loss on this drug. For example, if somebody loses 20 pounds, 10 of that might be fat, 10 of that might be lean mass. At the end of the day, you might be getting smaller, but you might not necessarily be getting healthier if your body fat's not the one that you're losing and you're actually losing lean mass. Up to 30% lean mass loss is clinically acceptable. I actually think that's kind of high. When I'm working with a client, I try to make it around a 15% lean mass loss. You're going to lose lean mass if you're losing body fat. That's typically par for the course, right?
Okay.
You're going to lose some lean mass. Up to 30% is clinically acceptable. We've seen it as high as 40 and 50% with people that are on semaglutide. What I think is happening, so kind of what I've seen, again, just from my own personal working with these clients, it kind of depends on a few things. One is how the dosage is being done. So one of the benefits to not going through insurance is that the physician or the nurse practitioner can up your dose very, very quickly. When that happens, I think a lot of times, if you've heard of the side effects, people get the side effects of they feel super nauseous, they don't want to eat, they don't have any energy. So you're unable to work out. You're not eating that baseline metabolism RMR that we talked about earlier. So all of the weight that you're dropping, absolutely you're going to drop some body fat, but you're going to drop a lot of lean mass too. And if you plan to ever get off this drug, it's the same as any other weight loss. You've got to have that muscle mass. You've got to sustain that lean mass. Otherwise, as soon as you get off the semaglutide, it's all going to come right back. Your hunger is going to come back. You're going to start eating again. It's just going to come back. So I think that's not really being explained to people, the lean mass loss part. You can look at it as risk to reward. If we've got somebody who is so overweight or is so obese and they really will benefit from a massive weight loss, regardless of where that comes from, then absolutely. If the health outcomes are there, go for it. You talked about kind of celebrities and other people using the drug. If you're using it just to lose a little bit of weight, again, I'm not saying that's wrong, but you need to be aware of what's happening, because if you only need to lose 15 to 20 pounds and 15 of that is lean mass and you only lost 5 pounds of fat, your body fat's still going to be high. Now you're entering that sarcopenic obesity that we talked about. Your body fat's still technically high, but the number on the scale is lower. So one of the things I've been doing, some of the clients I'm working with that had that original weight loss, they lost a ton of weight. They were super happy because let's face it, we were all taught that the number on the scale matters. So there's a psychological component there. They've lost weight. They're happy with the number on the scale, but now they're like, I'm still kind of squishy. I lost the weight, but I don't feel as strong. They're tired all the time. It can cause fatigue. That's because they're not eating. If it's done properly, you can find kind of a maintenance dose. You can find a dose where the food noise is gone, but you're still able to eat. And you need to be able to eat and you need to be able to exercise. I've worked with people that are on that kind of dose, and I've actually seen them. I had a person actually come in for a DEXA scan the other day who had that original lean mass loss. Now she's actually starting to build that lean mass back up, but the fat is still going down. And that's exactly what we want. We want that fat loss with the lean mass either staying the same or increasing. So it can be done. People need to be educated on it. The fitness industry needs to be more welcoming and more open to working with these people, because a lot of times they're choosing to do this because they've been beaten down by weight loss before. They've tried everything, nothing's worked. And this really can be like this kind of beacon of hope for them. We as fitness professionals need to hop on that and help them do it correctly.
Right.
Help them eventually maybe want to get off of it or get to a small dose where you can eat and you can enjoy your life. A lot of times people get to a certain dose where they can't even eat. I wouldn't want to be like that. I wouldn't want to not be able to ever have food again or enjoy food again or go out. I just think it's like everything else. There wasn't enough information out there. It is absolutely working. So people are hopping on it. They're not aware of what's really happening to their body. So they either never get to go off of it now because they've slowed their metabolism down, they've lost the lean mass, or they go off of it and they gain all the weight back. There needs to be some cohesion between the fitness industry and the pharmaceutical industry. It's here, it's not going anywhere. And I think that it can be super beneficial. It just needs to be talked about. People just need to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And the fitness professionals need to not be against it and need to not be judgmental. And if somebody's choosing to do this, great. You're trying to turn your health around. Maybe they've been through some other things that didn't work. And this is what's really going to jumpstart them, because sometimes all it takes is a little bit of motivation. And if you lose 10 pounds and 5 of that was fat and 5 of that was lean, but it gets you into the right mindset, fine.
Well, and you also don't want them to feel like they need to hide it.
A lot of people do. Like, I have talked to many people where I didn't find out till way later that they were on it because they were afraid to tell me. And I try not to be that way, but I think people are just, they're automatically, I don't want to say ashamed, but they don't want to be seen as like taking the shortcut.
Right.
It's not a shortcut. You still have to do the work. You really do. I think making it more acceptable, but just making sure that people know what's happening and they have the tools to do it properly is really what needs to happen. Because right now, I feel like a lot of it's not. And to nobody's fault. They're taking this drug. They're like, oh my gosh, this is working. Life is good, until they try to come off of it. You don't know until it's too late.
Well, and I love the fact that if they are doing it with a doctor or through a spa or whoever's prescribing it, that you can actually work with them on it as far as dosage and making sure they're getting all the right nutrients and being able to work out. That's amazing.
Again, it's here to stay. I think the education needs to be out there. And unfortunately, we're quick to latch on to something because it works without really taking a look at, okay, is this the right option for me? And what's my exit strategy?
Right. Melissa, I have seen personally some amazing results come out of METAFITRX. Can you tell us a couple success stories maybe from the past year?
Well, like I said, the semaglutide one where we're getting the body fat down and the lean mass up has been great. That's been a fantastic success story. We've had a sarcopenic obesity success story that I was very proud of. And this was somebody, again, that came in. BMI said they had clinically obese levels of body fat and no muscle mass and a slow metabolism. So we had to repair the metabolism first. She took a solid 6 months of how we talked about repairing that relationship with food, trying to make sure that she was eating enough to raise the metabolism. And the goal there is to raise the metabolism without gaining weight. So we have to do it very, very slowly. So she was able to go from, I believe her original test was around 1,100, like 1,100 as far as a baseline metabolism. And we got her up to about 1,500, which was excellent. Now we were able to put her into a little bit of a deficit, just take her down to 1,400 and then have her work out. So we were able to repair. Now she's on the workout stage, right? So I'm really excited to see the body recomposition shift now that she has successfully repaired the metabolism. So that's been great. I had another older gentleman who did the exact same thing. He had to take about 6 months and repair the metabolism first. He was able to see a little bit of success during that repair, which was nice, but just the fact that it got itself to a level where he could eat, he had a better relationship with food. His workouts are now fueled, and now we're starting to see more of that body composition shift. We have a couple of people on what we call our big program where we're basically holding your hand. You get all of the assessments, you get fitness, you get nutrition. David is on you like every single day as far as texting, emailing. It's like weekly. Like we've got a few people that are doing this pretty intensive program with us. And that is designed for some kind of immediate success, like quick success, and then being able to do it on your own. We've had really good results with that, mostly with people maintaining that lean mass. Because again, our goal is to maintain the lean mass so that your metabolism stays high so that when you lose the weight, you don't gain it back. We've seen some really amazing success stories that I really attribute to just being able to get that data and kind of cut through the nonsense in the beginning and just be like, this is exactly what you need. My husband does the behavior side of everything because we can hand you the right answer, but if you don't do it, a lot of times it's in our head. It's the behavior change. It's that daily accountability that somebody needs. So he has been fantastic with that, with just working on people with behavior change, because I might hand you a program, this is what I want you to do, but then there's reality, right? So we have to kind of meet in the middle and figure out what's going to work for you and what's going to work for your lifestyle and what you're going to maintain, because we sell it as this isn't something you get to be done with or go off of. This is, you're trying to create new habits and you're trying to create a new lifestyle. So we've had at least 6 or 7 people now go through that big program, which has been awesome just to watch their success, and to physically see it on the DEXA machine is really, really cool when you can see the tissue change.
Yeah, I've been avoiding that thing. I'm scared of it.
I'm really good at, like, my bedside manner is great. When I go over,
you don't go, oh my God.
No, I quit doing that.
Okay, well, so tell us this, for everybody listening, what is the process to reach out to METAFITRX, and what does a first appointment look like for somebody that's ready to reach out?
You can go on our website. It's www.metafitrx.com. And we always suggest scheduling a free consultation first. If you don't know what this stuff is, come in, let's learn about your goals, and let's figure out what's right for you. Do you need the entire package, or do you just need one assessment? We really want to sit down and make sure that we give you what you need and what's going to be helpful, what you're going to use. The free consultation, I think, is the absolute best way to get started. We're not selling you something you don't need. That way we can already kind of align what we offer with your goals. You get a better bang for your buck. So you don't purchase anything until you talk to us and you know great. What's going to be the right way. If you're familiar with these assessments and you know you want all of them, or you know you just want 1 or 2, then you can easily just book through our website. All of our services are on there. The booking system is directly linked to my calendar. So you would just book, pay, and then I'll see you in the lab.
Amazing.
So we do suggest the 30-minute consultation, especially, again, if you're unfamiliar with these assessments and what you think you need, we can really break it down for you.
Every doctor in Richmond should be recommending that patients that are struggling with any issue related to this. We're
getting there. We've got some that have latched on to us, which is really cool.
It would be so nice if the medical community was doing something hand in hand with something healthy.
It would be. We've had a lot of physicians come see us and come get this stuff done, and they go to school to fix people. And it doesn't mean they don't know prevention or they don't understand prevention, but by the time somebody comes to see them, it's usually to fix something, not to prevent something. So that's not their fault.
Yeah.
But there have been some doctors, especially when you start looking at like the concierge doctors or the direct primary care doctors, I think they're getting a lot better about prevention and holistic health, overall health, looking at all these other things. And those tend to be the physicians that reach out to us, or we have clients that are like, oh yeah, my doctor told me to come get this stuff done. So it's getting there. I think unfortunately our insurance-based practice is not going to be there for quite some time, but we're starting to see a lot of physicians kind of take that more holistic, more healthy approach, because prevention is the absolute obvious best medicine.
Love it. And you are where in the Richmond area?
We are located at the intersection of West Broad and Bremo. We're at 5901 West Broad Street. So it's kind of right above that Willow Lawn area.
Okay, good. So that's convenient to downtown, West End, pretty much everywhere.
Yes. Brand new location. We opened up July 5th. So it's nice and big and spotless and new. And I love it.
Awesome. Well, everybody reach out to Melissa and David on MetaFitRx.com and book your free consultation so you can find out what program would work for you. And Melissa, thank you for being on River City Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to River City Podcast. If you're interested in setting up a podcast for your business, go to rivercityconsulting.com.